Okay. I don't see you on this platform, and I don't know if any of you know me. And if you do know me, I'm sorry. And if I ever offended you, forgive me. But my day job is not appearing on the TV, although sometimes these days it kind of feels that way. My day job is as Chief Officer of the Cheshire Association of Local Councils. Now, hopefully, if you are not from Cheshire, you are still familiar with the concept of a county association, and I hope that in turn your council has a good, if not reasonable, relationship with its county association, and in turn that you, as practitioners, get good support from that county association, because that is what we're here for. Often we hear about a kind of, not a north-south divide, but a clerk-member divide. I don't see life that way. I appreciate that occasionally over employment matters it will become that. But generally speaking, county associations support town and parish councils, and the mechanism by which we do it is through our clerks, when they've not had too much of the gym. So, those of you who perhaps didn't know me before, suddenly saw me pop up on your, well, kind of for a while, everything, back in February. And it was one of those surreal experiences in life. I had a telephone call from a friend one evening who said, "Oh, you're trending number 3 in the country." And I did that thing that people do when either they haven't heard or they don't understand what's being said to them, where you kind of laugh to acknowledge it and then move on to something else. Because I can't tell you how little I know about social media and what trending means. I know a little bit more now, but I didn't then. So a little bit later, text message, "You're trending number 1," meant just as much as trending number 3, but the numbers had changed. You can see why. Parish council finance is not my forte. And so I texted my son and said, "Do I need to worry about this?" No, Mum, it must be a mistake. So, never gave it any more thought until the following morning, when there was literally news vans and reporters camped outside waiting for the door to open. And I had absolutely no idea what they were there for. I think what people perhaps don't realise is that the story broke in February, but the meeting itself took place back in December. And in those COVID days, I think all of us were struggling with the idea of Christmas, never mind anything that was going on in our work life. So when the first person talked to me about the handful of parish council meeting, my first thought was, what the heck did I miss? Quickly had a look at the link, just to make sure that, you hadn't had somebody walk past in their underpants or something that I hadn't noticed. But no, everything looked pretty much as I remembered it. Not pleasant, but as I remembered it. And that's how the story broke. It was, like all council meetings at the time, put on the internet by the committee chairman. It was picked up by a young policy student in London. It was edited by his girlfriend, and suddenly, apparently, trending number 1 in the country. And I was very surprised at the reaction that it got. My first reaction was one of fear. I think those of us who've worked with town and parish councils for a long time have been mindful of how difficult it is to encourage people to step forward as councillors, to encourage people to step forward as clerks. So if their perception of local councils was what they were seeing on the screen that night, that job just got harder. But the reality was that although some people did watch it like a traffic accident, more people were suddenly interested in what is a parish council, and more people were asking themselves, how do I get involved? And so, for me personally, I have to refer to my notes because there's been so much happen over the last, it's only 7 months, that it's almost difficult to remember, and it kind of feels like it happened to somebody else. So I've done Good Morning Britain, done it a couple of times. Steph's packed lunch, that must have been good because they invited me back. I was there yesterday for pretty much a full day's filming. I've done The Last Leg, The Archers, the Brit Awards, which apparently, and again, please do not underestimate how out of popular culture and social media I am. I'm old. And then radio, newspapers, and I have my own podcast and have just recently released a book. So it kind of feels like so many people found something of connection with what they saw in that video. I was surprised at how many people from outside the sector were contacting me by email and saying, I totally got what was happening that night. That kind of thing happens to me all the time. And these were not people in the town and parish council sector. Now, again, I make another reference to being of a generation that kind of is more winding down than winding up. And my perception as a woman is that this was resolved, that we no longer had a society where men overspoke women, where women were constantly feeling undermined in meetings, etc. Because that hadn't been my experience for some time. And I just assumed that was everyone else's experience. So a lot of what was asked of me at the time was, by interviewers, was, why do you think this video went viral? And I would think to myself, well, foolish question. It's not quite how I put it in my own mind, but what a foolish question. Because if I had any idea how that meeting went viral, don't you think I would be a media mogul of some kind? But I do think about it, and I think for me, the biggest issue was that of people seeing karma. People felt that what they saw was appalling behaviour, and it was. And they saw it have a consequence. And often these days, whether you're talking about local councils or life in general, I speak again as someone with a particular perspective, it seems as if there are no consequences when behaviour is bad. I think that there was a bit more interest in local councils generally, so that perpetuated it. And I also can't get away from the fact that on some level, it was just funny. Now, if anybody asked me at the time, did I find it entertaining, then I don't think the answer would have been yes. But looking back on it, I think when you see someone, and clearly that happened to at least one of the councillors, who has so lost control of themselves that they become like a child that throws their toy on the floor, stamps on it, and then screams at you that it's broken. And I think that is something, when you feel that somebody has completely lost control in that way, you laugh. Now, some people will laugh because they just think it's funny. And I think other people laugh because of the discomfort that it makes you feel. But one way or another, people do find it entertaining. So have the last 6 months been a blessing or a curse? I don't know that you can give that a single answer. I think that people might think, and I certainly thought, that media events were far more glamorous than they actually are. I've done a couple of biggish presentations on TV, and in both cases were done in a warehouse where you might have expected them to have been a much more glamorous purpose-set building. Also, people kind of assume that you make mega bucks out of doing things like this. And again, you don't, although I'm really hoping that some gin comes my way. But I kind of look at it as almost a slightly different currency. If I want to keep getting attention for the town and parish council sector, if I want to continue to promote the idea that the community is really important, local democracy is really important and is a place where you can make a difference, that our local councils, although they may not be perfect as they are a perfect tool for making a difference in the right hands. and encouraging people to think about whether or not they are the ones with the right hands. So on the back of my fame, it seems really weird to use that word, but apparently I am, well, when you go to do a TV show, apparently I am talent. And I even get my own dressing room with a name on the door. It's such the strangest feeling in the world. I was delighted only 2 or 3 weeks ago to be invited to Guernsey. Those of you who know me know I'm not big on geography, don't do a lot of travelling. But a lovely organisation over there called Women in Public Life, again, particularly invited me to go over and talk to women, was a clue in the title, about how they might engage in the political system they have over there. And although the system itself is different, the message was exactly the same. Get involved and make a difference. And I'm mindful that a previous speaker today, Sue Baxter, chairman of the National Association of Local Councils, was speaking with delegates. And the likelihood is, but just in case she didn't, mention the Make a Change campaign with the National Association of Local Councils, again aimed at encouraging people to get involved. But I recognise that pre-February of this year, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I worked in Cheshire, I just wasn't making any impression on raising the profile of town and parish councils. So the media interest, as I said, that I get allows me to keep going out and spreading that message. And yet there still seems to be an awful lot of work left to do. One of the things that I've spoken about, I hope passionately, because I feel passionate about it, is the code of conduct. Now, for me, as a working county officer, having dealt with more code of conduct issues than I could swing a cat at, the endless frustration of everyone involved in the process is palpable. You can see bad behaviour, you know it's there, you can demonstrate it, you can prove it, you can write a 56-page report on it, and you're still left with the only sanctions being suggesting that the member takes training and removing them perhaps from committees. And the frustration of that, of course, was that if they were the personality type that was likely to undergo training, we wouldn't have had a code of conduct issue with them in the first place. So we have a petition, myself and some colleagues, on the gov.uk website, calling on the government to look again at introducing sanctions for bad behaviour by local councils. And there is, I'm afraid, some resistance from government. It does not seem to think it's necessary. We think we're looking for something proportionate. It's not as if we're asking for people who have broken the code to be put in stocks and flogged. No, we're definitely not asking for that. But we are asking that we should be able to at least remove them from office or from acting in their official capacity for a period of time. And that, to my mind, seems proportionate. And if you have the chance, please do have a look at the website, give you a link for it later, and look at signing up to it, because it is depressing how few people actually make the effort and sign the petition. The other one that I feel very strongly about is virtual meetings. Now, when they were first introduced, I can't even remember when they were first introduced, must have been May. They were an imposition. We all felt that COVID was only going to be here for a short period of time. Keep your eyes shut, hit the gin a bit harder, and we'll all come out at the other end quite soon. And it was clear that actually that isn't what happened. So we had virtual meetings introduced, a lot of resistance to start off with, but I do think that most councils, by the time we hit May this year, were of the view that there is a benefit in being able to hold virtual or hybrid meetings. And I mean that it should be a facility, not an order. And then it's up to the common sense of the council to use it in the way that it sees fit. So either using it all the time in the form of a hybrid meeting, or using it for certain meetings and then having physical meetings for others. And again, we await the judgment of government on that. My personal view, for what it's worth, is actually this is more about not wanting Parliament to have virtual meetings than it is about wanting to have the rest of the country able to have them. So, in closing, what can I say about local councils? Difficult audience to talk to, because I suspect you know as much about local councils as I do. But I guess what I feel is that as councils, as bodies, we have changed. We continue to change, and we continue to grow to fill the gap that's been made by, I guess, a retreating principal authority in most areas. And I think, finally, the message that I hope to leave everybody with when they invite me to speak to is that actually each of us is making a difference. Thank you for listening.